We got two teams on the opposite side of the spectrum going at it. We got New Mexico going on the road to take on San Jose State. Lobos 3-1, San Jose State 1-3. One really riding the momentum right now. The other just trying to find any way to get on the right side of the win column. It's an 8 p.m. Mountain Time game on FS1 on Friday. Oddly enough, San Jose State opens as 2.5-point favorites. The over/under on this game is 57.5. I think you'd be crazy to count out the Lobos in any game right now. Coming off their biggest win against in-state rival New Mexico State, 18-point win there. Meanwhile, the Spartans are looking they're looking to finish a game for once. A 1-point loss to Stanford on the road. We've seen that at times they've been able to run the ball effectively. We saw last week that Walker Egan can pass the ball and be one of the better passers in the Mountain West. Jack Lane had a great game passing a week ago against New Mexico State. We also know that the Lobos can run the ball really well with that trio of Humphrey and McKinney and Bankston. Defensively, the Lobos have looked pretty good at times. They still have holes in their game, holes that I think the Spartans can capitalize on if they're playing the right type of football. I think the Lobos have a weakness in that secondary and certainly in their linebackers going across the middle. You can get 3, 5, 8 yards at a time across the middle. Certainly keep drives going, extending plays. I guess the question is, who do you trust more? I feel like you'd want to trust the Lobos. They're playing great football. They make a few mistakes here and there, but when it gets down to it, in the second half, they really tighten up their game and play arguably the best football to be played. San Jose State has been shown to be a team that can let up in the final 2 quarters, certainly in the fourth quarter. New Mexico, meanwhile, finds a way to win however they can. They utilize a lot of trick plays. Although Jack Lane had his best passing game this past weekend, they've been able to pass pretty effectively throughout the season. I think they have a great sort of balanced offense where they don't need to necessarily rely on the run game as much, or they don't need to rely on the passing game as much. Meanwhile, the Spartans, prior to last week, they relied on the run game heavily because they just could not get it done throwing the ball. And even though Walker Egan had a great outing passing the ball last week, and it wasn't enough to pull off the win. So although I think they'll have success against the Lobos, particularly in that secondary that's still sort of questionable, I don't know if it's going to be enough. I think the Lobos find ways to get stops at certain points, and I certainly don't think San Jose State's defense is going to be able to limit the Lobos the way they'd hope. Both teams are getting their first crack at conference play. The Lobos right now they're on a hot streak. They're 3 games away from being bowl eligible. I think that they've shown enough in non-conference play that they want to carry it over and show that they can compete for a Mountain West title at this point. I think the win streak continues for the Lobos on the road against a team that's, despite their record, still very much competitive, but still so many question marks. And I think you would rely on the team that's shown what they could do and been down at situations in times the past couple of weeks and able to separate themselves in the second half. San Jose State's shown that they can be a first half team, but not a second half team. I would much rather rely on the Lobos and Jason Eck and what they have going on over there. I think their defense is going to be key. They don't have to stop every drive, but certainly if they can get some turnovers and force some 3-and-outs, it would definitely benefit the Lobos more. Meanwhile, San Jose State, I think it's going to be up to their defense. Can their defense limit a team like the Lobos that utilizes screens and runs up the middle and find those deep throws for some serious yardage? It's the Lobos going on the road to take on San Jose State. It's an 8 p.m. Mountain Time game on FS1 on Friday. Be sure to check this one out. Our second Mountain West matchup of Friday night, we got Colorado State going on the road to take on San Diego State. It's a 8:30 Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. Colorado State 1-3 to start the season. Meanwhile, San Diego State 3-1 to start the season. One had a win last weekend, one had a loss last weekend. San Diego State opens this one as 5.5-point favorites. The over/under on this game is 38.5. If anything, I think I would trust a low-scoring game. Colorado State really hasn't been shown this season to put up a ton of points, and that's been their problem. And as far as San Diego State, it's come in spurts against certain teams. It's certainly come against teams that you wouldn't expect it. They put on a show against Cal, but then a tightly contested matchup against Northern Illinois. Who do you trust more in this matchup? I'm not sure. I think I would take San Diego State. I feel like their defense, if nothing else, is solid and can be relied upon. Meanwhile, in Colorado State, they don't do a lot well. Their defense, not very good. Their offense has struggled all season long. And certainly if it's a close matchup going into the fourth quarter, you really have no faith that the Rams can get it done to pull off a win. We don't know who's going to be at quarterback for the Rams, but they haven't really had success with Brassard last weekend. They didn't have success with Fowler Nicolosi to start the season. Denegal has been questionable at times, but they rely on the running game with Lucky Sutton and rely on Denegal just to do enough to keep them in games. Looking at both teams, I can see why this could be under 40 points on the day. Defensively, I expect San Diego State to be there. Offensively is another story. As far as Colorado State, you might not expect them to do much, and you'd have every right to think so. If the Aztecs can pressure whoever the signal caller is for Colorado State, I think that may be the ball game, because if they put pressure on them and really force them to rely on that running game, I don't know if the running game will be enough to get it done. San Diego State's offense will be more effective than it has been the past couple of weeks. The Aztecs are averaging 25 points per game. Meanwhile, Colorado State only 15 points per game. San Diego State also wins the turnover battle. They're +4 on the turnovers, and meanwhile Colorado State's -1 right now. Unreliable QB play has been the story for the Rams. They'll need to have a quality passing game to some degree to succeed in this one. I think they're definitely going to be run heavy. They're going to rely on the running game. Jalen Dupree and Lloyd Avant will be the double-headed monster going in this game. They're going to rely on them the most. Meanwhile, the Aztecs rely on Denegal much more. He's been decent at times. He hasn't been lighting it on fire by any means, but he's done enough to limit mistakes. He's got 3 touchdowns, 2 picks on the season. Lucky Sutton and Christian Walker to a lesser degree, both very impactful. This could be a game where both teams just very much rely on the running game, and it at that case it could be definitely a low scoring game, and whoever wins the battle up front will surely get it done on Friday. I don't know if this is more than a 1 touchdown game, but I do favor San Diego State. You rely on their defense and to come up big with some turnovers, and rely on your running game and Denegal to limit mistakes. As for the Rams, you don't know where they go from here. Who's going to line up under center? How effective will they be able to stay in this game for long? And certainly in the final stretches of the game, if it's close and they're trailing, you definitely have no faith that they're going to be able to get it done. 2 questionable teams, one 3-1, one 1-3, facing off on Friday night. It's an 8:30 Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. You got Colorado State going on the road to take on San Diego State. Be sure to check this one out. Regardless of the records, it's a game you don't want to miss any given year. It's Air Force going on the road to take on Navy. Air Force 1-3, Navy undefeated at 4-0. It's a 10 a.m. game on CBS. Primetime matchup to start your Saturday morning. And despite the Falcons being 1-3, losing their last two games by less than about 7-10 points. They're gonna give their all in this rivalry game, taking on the midshipmen. Navy opens up at 10.5-point favorites. The over/under on this game is 49.5. I feel like this will be a close game. Navy certainly been one of the better teams in the country the past couple of seasons. Air Force, despite their play, they've remained competitive in all their games this season. The fact that they start their season 0-3 against Mountain West teams, unfortunate, but they've shown that they could put up some points. Certainly throw the records out the window for a game like this. It's very much like it could be back and forth. Would I say the Falcons win this game? I'm not so sure. They have a chance. Sarka's looked good at quarterback for the Falcons so far. Their running game has been, consistent as usual. Defensively, I think, is the issue. They've had trouble stopping everybody this season, and they've found themselves going down early to teams like Utah State and Boise State and last week against Hawaii, and they can't really claw themselves back into it to diminish that lead. Hopefully they have a different game plan and turn out this weekend. Hopefully they can catch Navy off guard and stay competitive throughout and really find a way to at least maintain within a field goal throughout the game. We know Air Force can always put it on late and find themselves getting back in this game, but they can't go down more than 2 scores. If you go down 14 plus points, I just don't see them coming back from that. In a lot of ways they look similar, at least on paper. Navy's found incredible success with their running game. Passing has been decent, as could be said about Air Force. They have emergence of a passing game this season, but they've been able to run the ball effectively. Certainly defense is the biggest factor in this one. Can they stop the midshipmen will be the biggest question mark. I'd like to think that Navy, although undefeated and has looked great, that their offense isn't quite to the degree of Boise State or even a Utah State, maybe similar to Hawaii, but that they can keep this game close. Limit Blake Horvath to some degree. Keep him within the pocket. Certainly don't allow him to get away with any big chunk runs. He is their leading carrier for Navy this season. I think the best thing for the Falcons would be that Navy underestimates the Falcons coming in this game. I don't think they will. They know what they're getting when they take on another academy in Air Force, but similar to a rival game like the Lobos and Aggies a week ago. Maybe this is that game where it's just back and forth, and regardless of what their records and their statistics say coming in this game, that it's tightly contested throughout, and maybe you get a surprise going into that fourth quarter and through the final minutes of this game. It's Air Force going on the road to take on Navy. It's a 10 a.m. Mountain Time game on CBS. Be sure to check this one out. Game that Boise State's been looking forward to, all through the summer. They go on take on Notre Dame in South Bend. It's a 1:30 Mountain Time game on NBC. Boise State 3-1, looking like they're on a roll since that early loss to South Florida. Meanwhile, Notre Dame 2-2 to start the season, not quite what they expected. They look to be playing much better football now. They are now ranked 21 in the country. On paper, these teams look very similar. Obviously, different competition completely, but look very similar. Notre Dame enters this game 17.5-point favorites. The over-under on this game is 63.5. Is Notre Dame on upset alert? I'm not quite sure. They were able to handle Arkansas fairly well on the road last weekend. Boise State, although they've looked much better the past couple of weeks, are they ready to take on a powerhouse team like Notre Dame? I'm not quite sure. But I know that I just really wouldn't feel like Notre Dame's going to absolutely have their way with Boise State. I don't think this is quite as easy a game as they may believe it is. Maddox Matson's played good football. He's got 9 passing touchdowns on the season, 1,100 yards. Similar to C.J. Carr, he's got 1,000 yards passed on the season, 9 touchdowns through the air. Jeremiah Love's looked good, 340 yards, 5 touchdowns. And on the other side of the football, you got Dylan Riley, 360 yards, 5 touchdowns. Just similar style of football the way these guys do. They can run the passing game. They definitely prefer the running game. I think it's a great QB matchup between Matson and Carr. It's a great running back matchup with Riley and Love. A lot of yin and yang elements to this game. Defensively will be a completely different story. Notre Dame, tough defense that the Broncos are going up against, but the Broncos defense has, shown that they can play some quality football. 4 turnovers last week, although it was App State still. Just impressive performance, a couple of pick sixes there. Certainly the most intriguing matchup of the game for Mountain West teams. Could surprise and be certainly one of the better games of the weekend. I like to think that the team that will be able to pressure the quarterback better will have a better chance at winning this game. It seems like on paper that things are stacked against Boise State, but I think they'll make it a more competitive matchup. Do they win this game? It's not impossible. I certainly see why they wouldn't be favored in this game, or 17 points though. I'm not so sure if you take that 17 points if you're in Notre Dame. I think they certainly, the Fighting Irish, know what they're getting into with this non-conference Mountain West team coming into South Bend in early October. But I think Boise State's just going to play some good football. I think they're much more improved. They learned from their early season loss. I see them being competitive. I think if they can not let it get out of hand early, I think they'll stick it out and make it interesting through the final quarter. From what I've seen, early on in this season, Notre Dame 17.5 points. That just seems greedy. I don't know if they're 17.5 point favorites. I like the Broncos. Broncos stay competitive. I'm not going to say they win this game, but I say they keep it close. It's the perfect weekend to show off your running game. If Boise State's running game can be effective, I think it'll open up their passing. In their passing, they will have success. This will certainly be a litmus test for not only Boise State but just the other Mountain West teams, because they will see how Boise State can do against Notre Dame, and from there, when they face on Boise State, depending on how they do, they're going to say they can either compete or not compete with the likes of Notre Dame and some of them ACC teams. It's a great 1:30 matchup on NBC. Boise State going on to take on Notre Dame. Be sure to check this one out. We got an undefeated UNLV going on the road to take on Wyoming, 2-2 on the season. It's a 5 p.m. Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. It feels like UNLV's the hype around them's kind of cooled off, but they're still undefeated on the season. Found a way to win on the road against Miami, Ohio a couple weeks ago. Wyoming coming off a loss to Colorado. UNLV opens up at 5-point favorites. The over/under on this game is 53.5. It's interesting that the UNLV only 5-point favorites. I feel like just off of their off their resume, they've been in close matchups all year long. But still, I feel like they would have been favored higher than that. Certainly, Wyoming will give them a tough test defensively. Offensively, they've looked better week by week. Calandra's got 8 touchdowns through the air this season, 940 yards passing. Meanwhile, Caden Anderson, he's got 5 touchdowns on the season, a couple of picks, 700 yards passing the ball. Jaden Thomas is their premier back. He's got 5 touchdowns on the season, 393 yards. Samuel Harris for Wyoming, he's got a touchdown, 256 yards on the season. Offensively, you would have to favor UNLV. They like to put up some points. Defensively, Wyoming, you might give the edge to Wyoming. They've been able to hold teams, you would say, far out of their league for much longer Meanwhile, UNLV's been a team that's just done enough to keep them behind, but still close enough to strike. They've been in close games all season long and have prevailed, but not quite to the degree that they have been favored. Though, the biggest question I have for is Wyoming scoring. UNLV puts up 38 points per game. Wyoming puts up under 20, just around 19 points per game. If they can't match the firing power that the Rebels are bringing into Laramie, it's going to be ugly early on. I know that Wyoming has been solid with teams like Utah through the first half at least. Maybe they'll do the same thing with UNLV, but that Rebels team likes to score, and they've been good at scoring all season long. And certainly, sneakily the biggest key for UNLV is their defense. Despite them giving up points and allowing the Rebels being close games all season long, they're +6 on the turnover game. Meanwhile, Wyoming's still great, solid defense. They're +1 on the turnover game. It seems like Wyoming at this point struggles to play full 4 quarters of football. They usually start off strong and fizzle out towards the end, or in their last outing against Colorado, where they didn't do anything in the first half, but came on strong in the second half. I partially put that on the way Colorado plays. They are notoriously a first half team. Can the Cowboys play their type of football for 4 quarters long is the question. Meanwhile, the Rebels, at this point, it's about winning games. You're not worried about what any spread is. They just find ways to win, and you really have to trust them and rely on them to get it done, because they've shown it all season long. When in doubt, you trust this Rebel squad offensively and defensively. You trust them to get some stops and to come up with some big plays on the offensive side. I don't see why you would question that going into this Wyoming game. 5 points seems incredibly generous for the UNLV. I'm sure it's going to go up later on in the week. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes up to a 2-possession type of game. But it's hard to go against the Rebels right now. Wyoming, good defensively, have shown improvements on the offensive side. I just don't know if they're ready for this dogfight that they're going to get from the Rebels. I favor the Rebels in this one. I don't know if it's a close game. I feel like now that UNLV's in conference play, they're really going to give it their all. And now that they could see first place and Mountain West title on the horizon, they're giving it their all. I like the Rebels in this one. It's a 5 p.m. Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. It's UNLV going on the road to take on Wyoming. Be sure to check this one out. Our final Mountain West matchup of the day. We got Nevada going on the road to take on Fresno State. It's 8:30 Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. A team in Fresno State that's really caught fire, 4-1 on the season, and we have a team in Nevada that hasn't even been able to catch a cold. 1-3 on the season. Fresno State opens up at 13.5-point favorites. The over/under on this game is 44.5. It seems cut and dry. You don't trust Nevada whatsoever, and you have started to trust Fresno State a bit. E.J. Warner has really come into his own. Started the season, incredibly rocky. Despite them winning games early on, he couldn't really get it done throwing the ball, and maybe with the emergence of his running game, it has opened up the passing for him. And 5 for 5 on the season, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 946 yards passing the ball. Bryson Donaldson's the leading rusher. 3 touchdowns on the season, 343 yards running the ball. As for Nevada, Chubba Purdy still is their guy, or it could be A.J. Blanco. Either way, it really has not panned out for the Wolfpack at anywhere they turn. Purdy's only got 1 passing touchdown on the season, 6 interceptions. He's the Wolfpack's leading carrier. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns, 276 yards running the ball. Besides that, last-second win against Sacramento State, it's looked relatively ugly. They got, a beatdown against Penn State, heartbreaking loss against Middle Tennessee as they gave up that fourth quarter, and Western Kentucky really, pulling away in the second half. As for Fresno State, after that loss to Kansas in Week 0, they got wins against Georgia Southern, Oregon State Southern, and Hawaii. not only have they shown to be a team that puts up points, but defensively they've come up big in situations and have done just enough to help out their offense in great field position. This team averages 32 points per game. Meanwhile, for the Wolfpack, they're averaging around 15 points per game and incredibly down bad on the turnover ratio, -6. If you have any faith that Nevada can stay in this game through the final stretches, I'd be incredibly surprised. Fresno State, they're on a 4-game win streak, have looked better and better every week, coming off a great win against Hawaii at Hawaii. Meanwhile, Nevada really hasn't given any indication that they're improving week by week. If anything, it feels like they're sort of deteriorating. In this game, you go with the team that has played good football throughout the season, and that's Fresno State. 13.5 points seems quite doable for the Bulldogs, and you just really have an anxiety if you're a Wolfpack fan, and that they just can't be relied upon at any point through the season. I think E.J. Warner has another big day. I think Rayshawn Luke and Bryson Donaldson have a good day, and they really set a tone early on, and they could be up 3 scores going into halftime. I got Fresno State with a decisive victory here. It's Nevada going on to take on Fresno State. It's an 8:30 Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. Be sure to check this one out.